5. I'm talking to Alice Eichenbaum. Alice, when the other tape ended, we were talking about the wonderful play that Ray had written.
Yeah.
Would you tell me more about it?
Yeah, I started to tell you that about Rumkowski. Rumkowski was the Tsar in the Lodz ghetto. He was Jewish, and the Germans put him up as a henchman, you know. He's the one that sent whomever he wanted to send to Auschwitz. First he was good. He tried to get him work, and he thought that he can save the ghetto if he pleases the Germans. So as more work they did and supplied them with whatever they needed, gloves or, you know, furniture or something, they kept quiet. But it didn't help. In the end, he had to send everybody to Auschwitz. And when he arrived in Auschwitz in the end, they were waiting for him for the ovens, you know, the people. So he did a lot of good for the children in the beginning, you know. But in the end, he was a puppet in the hands of the Germans. Ray wrote a play about him, you know, how he sees it, you know, it's a trial. Rumkowski goes to heaven, and they're questioning him there. Were you good or were you bad, you know, and what he did good and what he did bad, and how the trial is going. It's a little controversial because Ray pulled in also a lot of other people in the trial, how they would see him, like Professor Schweitzer and who else is there? Napoleon and something like this. The end is that it's up to humanity. Humanity will judge him later on, and history will judge him. The play, you know, it was. But let me go back also before to this. Until Death Us Part. This is a play about his sister Bronya, who has a girlfriend who is not Jewish and who steals herself into the ghetto and helps her. And they both have boyfriends, Jewish boyfriends, and then of course they get, the non-Jewish girl, Wanda is her name in the play, gets sent to Auschwitz also because she helped the Jews. It's just very short, and you know, until that as part, of course, there's a romance. And the Jewish Community Center put the play on. It was really interesting. They didn't put it on, it was the reading, you know, it was the reading. Michael Fink, Mike's wife, was the narrator even in this play, you know. And it was put on a Sunday, you know, and Ray picked his, you know, his actors, and it was a very well done. We didn't have a video and we didn't have a play, which really looking back was sad we didn't do it, and it was a big success. And Ray was so proud of it, and he was so happy, you know. I mean, Bronya was a nice non-Jewish girl who put it on. We went to see, a few months before, we went to see Anne Frank, which was performed, and she was the mother, and she volunteered for Ray to play this, you know. And her husband was in the play, and it was a wonderful ride-up, and everybody was happy, and Ray bought each of the women a rose. 24 hours later, my husband was gone. So that was like he went on the height of his life, you know. So my friends who are in Vienna, who I'm still very close with them, he's an interpreter. He, you know, translates from English to German or something. And when Ray was still alive, he sent him the books and the play. And there's 2 books that he wrote in English, the Romek's Odyssey and A Memorial to Bronya. These friends translated it, and will be published as one book in Germany, in Austria, in Austria. I was supposed to go in October, but the book is not ready. So if the book gets ready, it will be published. They are going to pay, the Austrians are going to pay for my flight to Vienna. This is thanks to my friends. And my friends were so upset about the death of Ray. They have a son who is a doctor, a neonatal specialist in one of the hospitals in Vienna. And one woman came there with a premature baby, was only 1 pound, and he saved and worked at it. And she said, I'll do anything for you what you want me to do, because I'll never forget it. So she was an actress, and her mother was the director of a play. So he said, good, you want to do something for me? Here's the play, put it on. The play was put on 6 months later at the summer festivals of Vienna in May of 1994. That was last year. And we all three went, you know. The Jewish community did not support it. No. It was okay, the play, but it's a tough play. It's a very controversial play. But the Jews did not support it. They didn't. First of all, because he's not from Vienna. He's not their Jew, you know, to come in. The other thing is, just came out Schindler's List. And the Jews in Europe did not appreciate Schindler's List, if you know it or not. Because in Schindler's List, the hero is not a Jew. The non-Jewish person is the hero. They didn't like it. They want the Jew should be the hero now. And so the play came out at the same time when there was a lot of controversies with Schindler's List and everything. And the play, again, it's a controversial play. He's a good Jew, he's a bad Jew. So they stood back. They didn't support the play. But whatever it was something, an achievement that my husband would have been very proud of it, you know, because he really did a lot, you know, and he always wanted to do it and give the cause that people should know what we went through. And nobody should ever forget it.
You know, we're going to end in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Alice, you just talked about what your husband wanted. What is it that you would like for people to remember?
I should remember that no child should ever be exposed to what I was exposed or my husband was exposed. Like my kids grew up in the normal surroundings. They have a home. They call Providence, although there were 3 or 4, that's home. If you think back, neither my husband nor me, we cannot call home. I call home Bulgaria, I can call Vienna, although now America is my home, of course. My kids grew up here. But we never had roots, if you think back. Never. People ask me, why don't I want to move now that, you know, eventually I have to retire to Florida? I said, no, I want to belong somewhere, to know that I belong somewhere, that this is home. You know, I couldn't uproot myself again, you know. And it was a horrible time of history, and it should never be repeated. It doesn't matter for what religion or nation or color, black, white, green, yellow. It should never happen. It affected how it broke up families. Bitter, it made him bitter, miserable. I remember one thing with my husband, he was never bitter. He was never angry. Maybe it meant me too. We both feel that we had a different outlook of life. Maybe I didn't suffer as much. When he went to their first reunion from the survivors to Washington, D.C., I remember his first words when he came back. He said to me, thank you. You didn't let me live. You let me live a normal life. You didn't bring the Holocaust or the horrible years into this house every day. So if the woman went through a terrible tragedy, like let's say if he went, the household is affected much more. So maybe I was fortunate. We were both fortunate that we met each other and somehow, although my kids think that they suffered a lot, that their upbringing was completely different than their American friends.
Carrie, we've been talking to your mother about what it was like for her as a young person, and she mentioned the fact that, you know, it's wonderful to have roots here in America because as a child she never did.
Mhm.
And I thought you might like to make a few comments about what it was like for you as a young person and what it's like to be your mother's child.
Well, it's always been a pleasure to be my mother's child. I've always been proud of my mother. My mother's always worked hard, and she's had some physical disabilities, and she's never. Can we start again?
No, that's all right. Keep it. It's beautiful what you're saying.
No, I'm stumbling over my words. I'm a little nervous.
Sure.
It's just like she's always overcame. She's always strived. She's always never made light of them. She's always overcame her disabilities, and whatever problems we've had, we've always fought them. And she's always taught me to be my father too. They always taught me to be a fighter. You know, whatever happens to me, and I've had a lot of bad things happen in my life. They've always taught me that there's always hope in life. You can always overcome it, and just believe in God and believe in yourself and believe in your family, and you will overcome. And my father was a great man. I loved my father a lot. It was like very special to grow up with my father. I was very proud of him when he spoke at schools and everything, and it was like a dream having a father like that, and I miss him a lot now. But I have to live on in his legacy. I realize I carry a big responsibility in this life. I realize when I worked at the Holocaust Museum, New England Holocaust Memorial opening last Sunday in Boston.
Yeah.
That was October 22nd. When I was going on the train to the memorial dedication, I felt I had the responsibility of my whole family on my shoulders. Not only my family who was alive and wasn't at the thing, but also my whole family who couldn't speak anymore. I felt like I was representing them, and I felt a very heavy burden. And
What you said just a moment ago that your father was like a dream father.
he was.
Tell me a little more about it. What was it that made him so special?
Well, he was gentle. You know, after all he went through, he still spoke to you gently. He always said, he never hated blindly. I know I have several friends of mine who say they wouldn't buy a Volkswagen just because Germany made it. And my father was never like that. My father would never say, you know, I would never buy a Volkswagen. If it was good for him, if it was a good quality car, he would buy it. He wouldn't buy it just because it was German. And that's the way he was. He survived a lot, and he went through everything, and he came back, and he still spoke to us gently about it, you know. And he was like, and like I would bring friends over, and like the friends would come, and he would speak to them gently, and he would say very softly, he would put his arm around their shoulder and say, "Listen, I mean, you know, I'm here for you. If you ever need me, I'm here for you." And it was like very comforting. I mean, after all he went through, he could have been totally cold and bitter and everything, but he wasn't like that. It was very great to have a father like that.
Did he ever say something to you that you sort of remember now?
Childhood. He missed the family, Kai.
Yeah, I always missed, like when I went to school and my friends would say, it was my birthday yesterday, my grandmother and my grandfather gave me this present, and I always said, you know, if only I had a grandmother or a grandfather, how they would have loved me and everything. That was very, very hard for me when I was a kid. But my father,
You missed the family.
I'm a very family-oriented person, and like,
He missed the family very much, because he came from a big family of Poland, you know, 3 children, and the mother was one of 6, and they all got together for Hanukkah and Purim, and he missed it very much. He missed the family life, he missed.
Sounds like you missed it too, though. I mean,
yeah, I did. I really did. I wish I had, you know, a sister or another brother. Would have been better. I would have liked to have a big family, and it would have been nice. But you have to make do with what you have, and it's. You know.
You know, you as a young person know, because of your mother and father, what the impact of the Holocaust has. But there are a lot of young people who now deny it.
There are.
What would you say to young people or to anyone who denies the Holocaust?
I would say wake up, because I mean, it did happen, and if you don't think it could happen again, you're very mistaken. It's like my father lived through it, and he would have nightmares. I remember he would scream in the middle of the night. I remember. And I remember when my mother tells me stories when my brother was I have an older brother. When my brother was born, he would say, right, Mom? He would say,
Yeah.
and he said
I told
he
you.
would wake up in the middle of the night screaming, and say, "The Germans are coming, get Howard, they're coming, hide Howard, hide Howard." And if they could see this, they would never believe. And if they could see the number on his arm that Hitler put on his arm, that he wasn't a person anymore, that he was just a number in their system. That I know people who've liberated death camps, and they tell me that 18-year-old American kids, like your son or like me, innocent kids who never just graduated from high school, and they're going into seeing skeletons and walking around, and these people live through it. Talk to one of these people, and they won't deny it anymore.
Before we close the tape, is there anything else you'd like to tell me?
Well, I realize I have a burden in life, and hopefully I can reach out to people and continue my father's legacy. My father, if there was one thing my father wanted in life, he would have wanted people to know about the Holocaust and spread the word that it shouldn't happen again. And if there's some way I can reach out to kids in high schools or kids in college, or if there's some way I could reach out and do that, I'd like to do that. I really would. That would be a life's goal of mine, to do that. And I've dedicated my life to my father's memory, and hopefully I know someday we'll meet again. Hopefully he'll put his arm around me and say, "Carrie, I'm real proud of you, what you did in life." And one more thing I'd just like to say is, being Jewish is not a burden for me. Being Jewish is a pleasure for me, and I will always be Jewish. I will never marry outside my religion. I couldn't do that to my parents, and I couldn't do that to myself. And I might never get married, but hopefully someday I will, and hopefully I will marry a Jewish girl, and I will raise my kids Jewish, and if my father could nearly die for his religion, I can certainly live with my religion the rest of my life. And a lot of people are probably ashamed to be Jewish these days, and there's a lot of parts of this world where it's not a pleasure to be a Jew. I know that for a fact. We have it very easy in America here. We can worship, we can go to temple anytime we want, we can say whatever we want, but if you are Jewish and you're having problems out there, just hang in there, and there is help coming, and you should cherish your religion. So there's so much intermarriage going on today, and I'm not gonna say I hate all people who intermarry, because I have friends who are intermarried and everything, but it's like, cherish your religion, hold on to it, and study more, and become a good Jew. And if there's some way you can hold on to your religion and just nurture it and be proud of it, that's what I say. Just do it.
Carrie, tell me something about Howard.
Well, Howard was a prototypical big brother. He was a great athlete and a great student, and he did everything right. I was so envious of him when I was growing up, and he's still a great big brother. I can always count on him for advice. He was there when I needed him the most. But I feel my brother had a lot of pressure on him growing up. Being the son of Holocaust survivors, my parents put a lot of pressure on him, and because he was more gifted than me, both athletically and student-wise, and studies-wise and everything, that my parents put a lot of pressure on him, and I feel there was a heavy burden. There was a heavier burden on him growing up, and he had to grow up more. He was forced to grow up more quickly. But I think the proof is in the pudding, and I think he turned out all right. He's got a good job, and he's pretty well settled now, and he's really a great guy, and I think he turned out. I think in the end, thank God, it turned out all right, and hopefully everything will be. Hopefully we'll be. I know we'll be great brothers, and hopefully my mother will live a long time. But if she, whenever she goes, I'm sure me and my brother will be very close. We might not be close in distance, but I'm sure we'll be close. Very tight. We'll always be close. If I need him or he needs me, I'm sure we'll always be there for each
other. This picture was taken 1928 in Vienna, and this is my grandmother that I love dearly, the only grandmother I knew, of course, and lived with us until the age I was 15. And she had the biggest influence on me, his Jewishness, the tradition, and the value for the Jewish life. This photo was taken in Vienna, 1931. I must have been 3 years old. It was my cousin Felix that I grew up together. We were born, both mothers, their name was Clara. They were in the same hospital, were in the same room when both babies were delivered, supposedly. And he grew up, we had a lot of fond memories with him. Unfortunate, Felix lives in Paris, and I have no contact with him whatsoever.
Know the date on that?
1939. This picture was taken already in Bulgaria, 1939, in the German school. It was a Christmas celebration. I'm the second one on the left-hand side with the white collar. It was still a good year. After 1939, everything was going downhill. I wasn't invited anymore to the Christmas parties and wasn't part of them anymore.
You said her?
Mm-hmm. Before. This is 1942, just before we started to wear the yellow star. It's a private school, as you can tell, Catholic French school. We all had to wear uniforms, all alike. It was funny, but it was one of the few schools that still accepted Jews, and out of 3/4 of the children here are Jewish. I'm the third one on the left row, last to the next last row. It was a happy year for me after leaving the German school and being rejected and neglected, and this was such a nice time for me, because even that the war was coming on, but I was happy. It was a happy years. That's the French school that I only was there for 3 years. We had to do the prayers, the French prayers, every time before school and before class and after class, but the Jewish kids didn't have to say it. We had to stand up, and I still remember at Notre Père qui est aux cieux, still the whole prayer, because we said it like 6 times a day. But it was a happy time. I still remember it. It was. This is Karnobat, the ghetto we were. These are all the women in the 2 houses that we lived together there. My grandmother is in this picture. She's the lady on the right, bottom right. My mother is on the left, next to the last row. If you focus right, then you can see some of the women were wearing the yellow star. If you stayed in the house and didn't go outside, you did not have to wear it. So probably most of the women there were inside cooking when the photographer came, and some of them still had their outside clothes on, so that's why the stars are on. But you could see the yellow stars on some of them. Yeah. That was June or July 1943. July 1955, I got my PhD in chemistry and minor physics, at the University of Graz, and the guy who is shaking my hand is a famous professor in physics. His name was Smekal, and Raman, for the X-rays, beat him out on the Nobel Prize. So we always had to say in physics, we couldn't say the Raman effect, we had to say the Raman-Smekal effect. So it's the famous professor. Okay, this is me in 43, I'm sorry, that's spring of 43. This dog name was a fox terrier, and it's Teddy. His name was Teddy. I loved Teddy because I didn't have any brothers and sisters, so Teddy was everything to me, you know. Teddy died just a few weeks before May of 1943, before we were transported to Karnobad. And we were so thankful. Can you imagine if we had to leave Teddy back? We had him 5 or 6 years. This is taken in Vienna. I was in graduate school already. And I don't know, it was it Vienna? No, I'm sorry, it was in Graz. I was in graduate school and was taken as a snapshot. Maybe I needed it for a passport picture. It looks like it, probably. Anyway, I had long hair at this time. Now I have only short hair. And I wore glasses already, but I took them off for my pictures at this time. This was taken in graduate school. I was given a project to extract a chemical from one of the weeds there that were growing outside of Graz. These are two also going for a PhD, some of my co-workers there. It was done in 1953, and it was a horrible project. We had to collect these weeds for days and days, and then dry them and extract them and boil them and chemicals. But the times to collect them was a lot of fun. The years were fun too. Young, innocent, with pink glasses, having on, thinking the world has changed. This is my wedding picture, October 17th, 1956. We would have been married now 39 years. We had a small wedding. We went to City Hall, as you can tell. We wanted to do the Jewish wedding in Israel and go where my parents lived. My mother was sick again and couldn't come to the wedding, so we wanted to do it. Unfortunately, we couldn't get married in Israel because when we went to Israel and a few months later, it was between Pesach and Shavuos, and it was Chol Hamoed, and they didn't let us marry Jewish anyway. So my parents only made a kiddush in the temple. This picture was taken in November of 1992. It raised only family. He had an uncle and 2 cousins, and that was the cousin's son's bar mitzvah. Howard is on the right-hand side. I think that's the only picture. Carrie is with us, and Ray, and Mark Warren. It was a happy time. You all. This is the poster that was posted all over Vienna and in front of the palace where it was performed. It says the trial, I mean in English, the trial about Eichenbaum, Mordechai Romkowski, and written by Raymond Eichenbaum. It was performed in Vienna at the Vienna Music Festivals in May of 1994. This is again on Mark's bar mitzvah in November of 1992. There was the whole family was together, the little bit of family that we have. Ray had only one uncle. That's all that survived just by sheer miracles. He was with the Warsaw Ghetto, but crossed the border to Russia. And after the war, after Ray was in Europe, he learned that he had an uncle in Brooklyn. Uncle passed away, but there's the aunt with her 2 sons and one of the grandchildren that was bar mitzvahed. So that was the family picture, last taken in November 1992.